the parable of the Good Samaritan, because here you have the classic case of crossing paths with someone in the crowd. No previous relationship, circumstances cross your paths, and God had some really interesting things to say about what happens when we intersect someone in the crowd. And so if we really want to participate in the fullness of the love of God, giving it and receiving it, we need the crowd, because God's love was for us when we were a stranger, when we were an enemy, when we were alienated and totally unknown. We did not know him. Mm-hmm. And his love crosses those boundaries.
All right, well, welcome to the Seacoast podcast, everyone. We're about to hear from Alli Patterson, who wrote a book called Blueprint for Belonging, the 5 relationships Jesus needed and why you need them too. I want to give a shout out to some Seacoast staff who are now patrons of the podcast, so they get extra content. Adam Erickson, Debbie Snyder, Lauren Alves or Alvies.
I think it's Alves in accounts payable.
Alves.
She's very nice. I like her.
I have to say Mrs. Debbie Surratt and then Keely Burcham.
Keely. Okay, Keely. Mm-hmm.
I have been on staff now. It's coming up on 20 years, and it is so weird not knowing most people. Who's Keely? You sound like you know
she's
her.
on the care
team,
and she's Brandon Burcham's wife.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Do you know who Brandon is?
Central worship
He's
pastor.
the central worship pastor.
Gotcha. Yep, that's all I needed.
Yeah,
That's all
she's
I needed.
on the care
She's
team.
Great.
Gotcha.
Yeah. They came from Somerville.
Yep.
Yeah, he was the campus or worship leader in Somerville. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
They got 3 boys, I think.
I don't know how many.
Boys, but they're great family.
Yeah.
You'd love them.
Yeah. Y'all listen to this, like I said, 20 years ago. And so I came on staff in 2005. 2006, we had our first child. This is how loosey-goosey we were here as a church culture, HR, and all of this stuff. We literally had a lady at our church say, hey, I've got an idea. I will be the children's director, so Priscilla can just have this long maternity leave. I'll do it as long as she needs. Priscilla gets paid still. I'm doing it for free. I called our HR director at the time and said, hey, there's an elder at our church that just wants to be the children's director in Priscilla's stead just for maternity leave, and we still get paid. Is that cool? They're like, sure.
Wow. That's
Try that today.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's really
So we've kind of buttoned things up a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot better.
Yeah. But there is...
Did she get a background check?
Yeah. I was just saying, all these things are going to my head. Like, I know how to bring up the legal ramifications of that.
Yeah, we really didn't even know this person. No, I'm just kidding. So I thought that we would spend some time talking about some introvert, extrovert deal. So Amy, I know you listen to the podcast relatively on the reg, but this is an older episode. Did you ever hear the Secret Life of Introverts? It was me, Jack, Natasha, and Lynne, and I don't think this was planned out really for this purpose, but it was neat because in real time, Lynne discovered, oh my gosh, I am not an introvert, because she was kind of like, maybe I'm a little
So
bit.
do you remember that? Because it's how you revive yourself, or what was it like, or how you recharge right. Is either around people or by yourself. So I do remember that, but it was a while ago, so I don't remember a lot about it, but that was new.
So when I learned that, because I remember, this is such a random fact, there was a freshman yearbook that we got before our freshman year started at Winthrop University. So it's like you could look through the pages and look at other freshmen and everything, and we could pick 2 things that we thought characterized ourselves, like 2 things that we liked. And I loved people so much that was one of the things I put down was people, and I remember I put basketball. But I didn't realize that people drained me as well. And when I learned that because people ask me, are you an extrovert? Oh, of course. I talk to strangers. When I was a little kid, I was walking around Myrtle Beach, 3 years old, and I got on the radio because I was just talking to people, and a radio guy came, you want to be on the radio? I'm like, sure. Just super outgoing, never met a stranger. But when I learned that it doesn't have anything to do with shyness and timidity and outgoing. It's how you recharge. I mean, it was huge for like my health because I realized, that's why when Priscilla and I go to a social setting 2.5 hours into it, and I'm like, I really want to leave. And she's like, she could stay for 3 or 4 more hours. I mean, and just it having that knowledge allowed me to be able to take care of myself and refuel. Yeah. Like I was like, I refuel by myself or with people that I'm super close to. But it was so neat hearing, and what was, I may have to edit because I do have that episode. It was episode 46. If anybody wants to go back, it was just really funny because it seemed like, and I'm being a little dramatic here, but it seems like there was some jaw-dropping moments for you two.
No, you're not being dramatic. I was like,
you were like, you guys exist? Like, there's people like you?
It was wild. I was like, I think I'm borderline. And then talking to them, like maybe 10 minutes in, I'm like, I'm not like you guys at all.
Yeah.
They're not like us.
You're a different kind.
They're not like us.
I don't understand anything that you're saying.
Yeah. Where's Lee? If listeners, Lee is Amy's husband. Where is he? Introvert or extrovert?
Yes, he's definitely introvert.
Okay, that's what I would have guessed. But again, I don't make those guesses anymore because everybody would guess I'm an extrovert. Yeah. Like when I told my brother the true definition, and I said I'm totally introverted. I think I told him that first. I said I'm totally introverted. He laughed. He was just like, "You're joking around." And then I taught him, well, here's what I've learned is the true meaning sort of thing. So I'll tell y'all that it was me and Priscilla's first year of marriage. And I'm a school teacher, and just it was like the first week of school, and I'm coming home exhausted, just so happy to be at home and just chill. Well, it was a Friday, and I come home and I'm like, oh, sweet, just get to chill with my wife. Well, she comes home, she's just like, I've got the greatest news. I've met this girl at work, and I just set up a double date for us tonight.
Oh gosh!
And I looked at her and I was like, why would you do that? Like, it was almost like, why would you do this to me?
Yeah.
And she'll never forget this, and it's something that we laugh about now. But she said something to the effect of, new friends. Like, it's a great opportunity for us to meet another couple. And I literally told her, and then she had a moment of, who did I marry? I said, Priscilla, I have all my friends.
Yes, I don't need any more.
They are established, and I have for sure matured and learned. I mean, I've made some of my closest friends since that time, but at that point, I was serious. I was like, I don't want any other close friends. Yeah. I have. You would not have gone, I would guess, Amy, that you would not have gone into that conversation wondering about yourself. Like Lynne was kind of like, I don't know.
Well, no, it actually was because it made me think at least. Because because I feel like we've always been told, or at least that's how I learned. Extrovert is like if you can talk and you're not shy. That's what I thought. And then, but hearing that, like how you recharge. And I feel like I definitely get more energy around other people, but I also like my time by myself too. Yeah. So I guess, I don't know. Yeah. It was definitely like, it made me think on that one. I liked it.
Yeah. I have talked to extroverts who I don't think they like any time to themselves.
Really?
I mean, have y'all met people like that where it's just like it drives them crazy to be by themselves?
Yeah, I know people who can't be alone like as it's awkward or, they just would never like eat by themselves or do stuff like that. But I don't know. Yeah. You can be by yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I spend a lot of time by myself.
Yeah. Do you like it or does it ever get old?
I enjoy it. Yeah. It does get old sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah. But like I can be so tired and somebody can call me and be like, hey, we're going to do this thing. And I'm like, oh, I'm there. Yeah. But I do. I mean, I enjoy time alone, but I enjoy being with people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what Alli Patterson does is, the book is saying, hey, Jesus had these 5 levels of relationships, and obviously we are striving to be like Jesus. And she has, and I'll start with the most broad category, crowd, and then community, then comrades, then circle, and then core. And I'm sure you could make some assumptions on how these levels change as you get closer to the core. Core would be people that you are comfortable in sharing any and everything, the good and the bad, and you know that they're going to love you regardless. They're super safe people. And I'm curious, my guess would be no, But I'll just ask y'all, as extroverts, do you think it's more challenging to really hone in on this core, know who they are, and even focus on them? Like, do you guys love settings where you're just meeting new people all the time, where you could be like, oh, shoot, I've got 15 people that are pretty cool with me and I like them too. I don't know if I have a core. Like, would it be more challenging to, and I know y'all are a little further along in life than like a 20-year-old who's still figuring things out. So maybe it was something that early on, and now you've wisened up and realized you need a core. But is it harder for extroverts, you think?
I don't think so. Not for me. And I've all throughout my life, I've always had a core. And so I mean, I can, but I also have always had that larger group of people. And I was in college, I was in a sorority. So I could be around a lot of people and have a lot of fun, but I'm not an oversharer. So there are only a few people who are going to know all the things that are going on in my life. And so I don't think recharging from being around people is not synonymous with not being able to go on the surface, because I'm a quality time person. And so I like to spend quality time like with the people who know me, but I also like to spend time with, you know, a larger group of people. So I don't think that you're being an extrovert limits you from like depth of relationship.
Yeah.
Or does it doesn't make it more challenging?
No, I don't think it makes it challenging.
But I think maybe my guess would be that there are some people that just get so much energy from crowds and meeting new people that they could possibly overlook it. This is a tough admission, but as I was thinking about these questions and asking you guys that, I would say that I am so introverted that I find myself thinking, oh, I need to check in with my core. Like I need relationship. And that's why I feel very blessed that a lot of my relationship stuff, and I thought it was neat because in real time, as she was going through these categories, I was like, I think me and Amy are comrades. And I would say me and Lynne are comrades. And that's basically, we know that we have each other's back. And I think I could come to you and say, I really, have a favor, or can you help me with something? And I know that the three of us would have each other's back, as far as comrades. And it was neat in real time picking up on that. But I think that, for me, I can for sure lose sight of, oh my gosh, I am not checking in with people. And I love the fact that it is built into my community here. Like, it's kind of part of my work, to have constant relationships. And so it's probably pretty good. Like, I could imagine myself if I had a line of work where, like, let's just say all I did was get content from other podcasters and then did their editing, I would have to work really hard to keep relational interactions outside of my family, And when I am around my core, it is so life-giving and so helpful. And I'm like, gosh, I need to make an absolute effort. Like, I think I know Robbie Madison. I think you know Robbie. Like, that's someone who I would consider core. And it's like, why don't I talk to someone like that more often? I really have to watch myself because I will overlook my freaking core.
Do you, as an introvert, are some of the people in your core extroverts? Like, do you find that, like, that maintaining of the relationship is because they're reaching out to you?
No, I'm a very intentional person. So because I know this about myself, I will counteract it by being very intentional. So, but it takes effort. And if I'm not putting forth the effort, and I think, I talk about mental health a lot. I'm in a very good place in my mental health and have been for a long time. But if I, when depression would kind of come and go in seasons, those would be the times when it would be really easy for me just not to reach out because I just didn't want to, because it wasn't in me naturally to do. And you don't want to do that. If you're in a bad place in your head, you need people. I have also found myself feeling guilty about my introvertedness. So I'll give you an example. I believe in community and kind of just like embracing your city and just the people that you're in day to day with. So a perfect example of that would be sports, like recreational sports for your kids. I walked into a gym the other day for, I think, Williams' basketball game because I would have been coaching Wayland's, and I just did not want to talk to anybody. And that is small talk central. You sit there with a bunch of parents. It's like, oh, what's up, Joey? And just small talk. Mm-hmm. Y'all, I wanted so badly not to talk to anybody. I had my Adidas Bluetooth, like I run with them. They're made for, so it wasn't like these huge headphones, but I had headphones on and I sat there and watched a basketball game with my headphones. Was that just kind of jerky? Like, would you say it's like a little jerky?
I don't know. I mean, if
I did it all the time, I can tell Lynne thinks it's kind of jerky. If I did it all the time, it would be kind of jerky because it's just like, come on, this is my community. But if it was like, gosh, I just don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah. I guess I get it because Lee's kind of like that. Like, he will just not want to have to talk to somebody. So I get it. Like, and that's a polite way, I think, to have your headphones on. So it's like, or like if you're on your phone to tell people, I'm not in the mood today. So
yeah.
I don't think it's jerky. I don't think so.
I mean, I do that in the breezeway.
Yeah.
I was just trying to imagine, like, did you sit near anyone? Because, like, in the breezeway, we have a co-work space where it's hard to, if you're over at the church sitting on the couch or at tables, people are, chatty, coming to talk.
I appreciate it because otherwise I'm going to come up and talk to you. But if I see someone or they're in their computer, I know, oh, don't mess with them.
Yes.
Just make faces at them. But, don't go talk to them. So I appreciate it.
Yes. And so I do that to signal, like, I'm locked in.
Yes.
And they might not know whether I'm on a call or I'm just listening to music, or a lot of times there's nothing playing. I'm just wearing them, which I'm assuming is what you were doing at the basketball game. But I'm just wondering, were you sitting near people or you were kind of sitting on? Because I'm just trying to imagine
it's a smaller gym.
And it's like they know you're not on a call or listening to music because you're, so I don't know. It just, I guess it's the environment that throws me off, but. It is a polite. It's a polite way just to signal like
you don't
I'm not
to talk
prepared.
To you don't have to go into a place and talk to anybody. And I feel like that's a polite way to be like, I'm just not in the mood today.
And I think what I'm talking about is that fine line of learning how to take care of myself as an introvert, but also not being selfish with my time, my space, and who I'm talking to, and. Thank God the Holy Spirit is alive and awake in my life. So this is a rarity. I can make that mental adjustment pretty quickly. But I can be in a situation. So let's just say I'm at that basketball game and I don't have my headphones on and someone starts some small talk and I respond nicely, but then I don't re-engage the conversation. Like I feel like I was an Uber driver for a while, so I could always read whoever's in the back. I'd be like, I wonder if they're an extrovert. If so, I can carry on a conversation. But if I ask them a question, they answer it, and then they don't strike it back up, I'm like, they want to be left alone. Leave them alone. So I have walked into a place like that. So let's just say that basketball game, and that small talk, I don't reciprocate. Like I answer nicely, but then I don't re-engage. If they keep with the questions, I'm thinking to myself, why do you think that I want to have this conversation? And I'm really thinking, have you ever heard of what an introvert is? Like,
they're not self-aware.
Educate yourself. I may be an introvert and I don't want to do this with you. Yeah. I don't want to do this, Did
anybody talk to you with your headphones or did it work?
Oh, it worked. I was just like, this is awesome. This is absolutely awesome.
Okay. It was helpful to let people know. Yeah.
Lynne, you are someone who is, you're just, if you don't know, behind the scenes. I don't know if this church could run that well without Lynne, but you're also a face that people see teaching occasionally, but also hosting and, just all sorts of different ministries. I would imagine, and this is kind of tricky stuff I talked about this same sort of stuff with Josh and Lisa on a previous episode. It's kind of tricky to talk about for listeners, so I'll let you go where you want with it. But have you ever encountered situations where you could tell and they weren't off-putting, they weren't offensive, they weren't trying to get anything from you other than a friendship, that you knew you just, I can't be this person's friend? Do you ever have those situations where you can tell people are trying to be your friend?
There have been a couple of situations like that, but I will also say, and I don't think this is introvert, extrovert, I think it's the way I'm wired. I don't share like that with, like, you're going to have to know me for me to start sharing the deep stuff. And so I'm a little more guarded in how I give my time to people anyway, because I don't go, like, it's one thing if we're like all going out with a group of people, or we're doing this, or we're all hanging out, or I'm at this event or that event. It's different if I'm like, not everybody's coming to my house. You know, it's different if I'm inviting you into space, or we're going off and like hanging out. And sometimes if I think, oh, this might be somebody I want to be friends with, we might, it might start like, yeah, we should grab coffee. And it might even be at the church. Like, at work, we should grab coffee and see, and then not grab coffee and see if we'll be friends, but we should grab coffee. I want to hear your story. And a lot of like those in between conversations for me, I'm usually asking them about themselves. So it's not, I'm not sharing a lot about me, but I'm like learning about them. And from there, I'll decide how I'm taking the next step. So I've never had to like pump the brakes, because I don't really give my time over to someone that I haven't been like, okay, I could bring them into my.
Because if you know that you're not going to be able to be a good friend to them, right? It's not anything against that person, but it's like, I won't be able to be what you need right now in this season.
And I feel like at this point in life, I know, I don't always know, but I think I'm better at discerning what kind of time I give them initially. It's a gauge of like whether this is like friendship. Like, are we hanging out on the weekends, or am I like, oh, I'd love to get to know you. Let's
I'll
meet
be
me
at
on
the
a
church
Wednesday
between 9 to 12.
Yes. So business hours versus after hours will kind of determine that.
Yeah. All right. So real case scenario. One of my closest friends, it admires you from afar, doesn't know you as a person, and I know would love the chance to have coffee with you. If I present, that's a real snenario, but I'm not legit presenting that as putting you on the spot here. Not doing that. How would you handle that if I did put you on the spot? Say, hey, I've got a really good friend of mine, gets a lot out of hearing you talk and everything. Would love to have coffee with you. Would you delightfully take up that opportunity? Like, okay, that'd be
cool. Because I do love being around people. So that's why I usually do coffee, and I usually do during business hours. Because I do like hearing people's stories, and it gives you another point of connection. So we may not be BFFs, but like people I see in the breezeway on Sunday, I'm gonna hug them. I'm gonna we're gonna know like peripheral information about each other's lives. And so anytime somebody reaches out and is like, I'd love to. I just had that experience with somebody who works for a church in Moncks Corner. She reached out to ask me about potentially speaking somewhere, and I had to decline. And she's like, "Oh, that's a disappointment. I really just wanted to get to know you." And I was like, "Well, we can grab coffee." And we had the best time. We ended up being there for like 3 hours.
Wow.
And it was incredible. And so I love spending time with people. So it's not something I would do grudgingly, or like, oh, this is a friend of Joey, so I'm doing a favor. I really do like to hear people's story. I just don't have capacity to be everyone's BFF.
Right. Yeah. And I would say, if I were in your shoes, maybe the roles were reversed, and you're like, hey, I know someone who'd like to talk to you. I would typically, especially if people want to talk, like, man, I get a lot out of how you talk about God. I'd really like to ask you some questions, or anything involving like mental health. I feel like that's almost a responsibility God's put on my life to, answer the call on those scenarios. But I would probably take you up on something like that, but it would definitely be a sacrifice. I would be glad that I did it. and I would be glad that it was over. Like when I'm driving away, I'd be like, I'm back. But it wouldn't be because it was so tumultuous being with that person. It would be like, I'm by myself again.
Yeah.
And when I leave this studio after talking to you guys, I don't have that feeling with y'all, because this conversation's not draining. Even if the microphones were turned off, I feel like I can be a little myself and at ease and everything. It's a lot different than sitting across from somebody who's meeting you for the first time. It's just a complete
you have to be on
game
your best
changer.
Behavior.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. All right, my last question to you and I was curious what Jack had to leave. He was going to be a part of it. He was going to be my introverted buddy. So I can't ask him this.
But he actually didn't have to leave.
Yeah, it's because I was here. He's still mad about Superstars.
No, he had a 3 o'clock with Margaret, I thought.
He had a 3 o'clock to just be alone.
Yeah, that's right.
He used Margaret as an excuse.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, his boss needed to talk to him.
He's not meeting with Margaret. I know what she's doing.
So, applying Miss Patterson's levels here, I'm pretty sure, and Amy, you can jog my memory if you remember, but I think the crowd are basically strangers. So when I go out there and I see someone from a neighboring business, and if I wave to them, hey, how's it going? That's a crowd. Where community, that's Seacoast. Like that's one of many communities in my life. Another one would be, parents of kids who go to the same school. Yeah, sports and all that stuff. So Seacoast community is very, very dear to me. And so when I'm at All Staff, it is a very precious time because I love people. This is family. I'm kind of marveling at all the people I don't know and enjoying getting to know people even from afar, hearing stories, tell me something good and all that kind of stuff. But I'm also experiencing a draining. And this was definitely a rarity. I hardly ever do this, but this last All Staff, I took about 45 minutes by myself. Our department meeting got out early, so I got lunch super early, and there's literally about an hour, between the closing of my meeting to the next thing that we all had to do. And so I went afar. I found like a table outside that was way far away from everybody. And I started to think, if I were to have sat by myself where there was a crowd of people, maybe a long time ago I would have been self-conscious, like sitting by yourself in the cafeteria in high school. There's no self-consciousness there. It's like, I'm 47 years old. I don't care about being by myself, but I am thinking, do other people think that I'm just this jerk that doesn't give a rip about anybody and doesn't want to talk to anybody? Like, if you two saw me off. Oh, and I would say also another thing that really, really bothers me is when I can tell people are coming up and talking to me because they feel like, oh, Joey's alone, I should go talk to them. Like, I'm like, oh, that's not the point.
I'm good.
Right. But if y'all saw, let's take me out of the picture because y'all know me. But if y'all saw somebody at All Staff sitting by themselves, in eye view of everybody else, so it's not like they found someone somewhere way off to the distance, what sort of assumptions do you make in your head? Or maybe you don't make any assumptions because you're mature enough not to make assumptions. But
is it lunchtime?
Yeah, lunchtime and somebody's sitting by themselves. Would you think that's probably not on their own volition? Like, they would probably prefer to be...
No, I mean, I think that would just assume maybe they're waiting for people to come, and it also depends on if I know them or not.
But okay, so then let's throw me back into the picture. Do you think, wow, that's kind of jerky, Joey's just not talking to anybody?
No, because I know you, so I know, like, oh, Joey's, especially if you're, like, way far away.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that signals I'm far away for a reason.
Yeah.
But if I were walking by a table and you were there sitting by yourself, I probably would say, hey, if I didn't have a place to sit, I might be like, hey, I'm going to sit down because I want to hang out with Joey. I don't know if I would approach someone that I wasn't in a relationship with.
Yeah.
And
I think I would at least like say hi and see, because if they were new and didn't know anybody, but most people that come, they at least have one person that they know, but then see how they respond. And if it's more of a like, hi, how, like a open, like that they were alone and wanted to talk, then respond. But if they were like, hey, and went back to what they were doing and leave them alone.
Yeah.
But you can't control what people think anyway, so don't worry about it.
And that happened to me at this past all staff. So you know how there was a black couch next to the grand staircase, and I was sitting with someone, but she had gotten up to go get something, and so I was sitting there, and a couple people walked by and said, "Hey, come sit with us," because they thought I was sitting there by myself, and I was like, "Oh, she's coming back."
Yeah.
So
yeah. Here's what I love about fellow introverts, and I'm thinking of Lee. I know that Lee Worley loves me, and I love Lee Worley. And I remember, I think it may have been the same all staff. I went outside and we exchanged some words, but it was literally kind of like a "how are you doing?" We hugged.
Okay, what's up?
And then we kind of walked away, and I know he's chill and cool that we didn't establish, because we could sit down over coffee and talk about deep things, but neither one of us were interested in like small talk because we weren't going to sit down for 30 minutes. And so it was just kind of like a hug, walk away.
Not a small talk.
And I know for sure that he's not offended. And it's just like that. Introverts know each other. We get each other.
He's thinking where he's going next. Now, if you had wanted to, like, Lee, something's been on my mind, I want to talk to you, he would stop and talk to you, but he's not going to feel like he has to do that. So good.
All right, guys. Well, it's Alli Patterson, and you need to listen to this or you really don't care about being like Jesus, because that's,
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is. Be like him. Buy the book.
We're excited. So tell the listeners, I've done a little bit of research because I take my job serious, right, Amy?
You do. There you go. Very well.
But tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. So we're talking about your book, Blueprint for Belonging, the 5 relationships Jesus needed and why you need them too. So do you write books for a living? You a mom? Where do you live? Give us a little bit of info about you, a snapshot.
Yeah. Well, I'm Alli. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am a wife of 26 years, mom of 4 teenagers, 13 to 19. I, in a previous existence that feels like ages ago, was in corporate marketing, which is why I landed in Cincinnati. I worked for Procter & Gamble ages and ages ago, which is lots of people all over Cincinnati land here because of B&G. So that's how the Lord kind of brought me to the Cincinnati area back in the day. But
where'd you move from? I'm curious. Where are you from originally?
Oh, I grew up about 3 hours from here, still in the state of Ohio.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I was coming out of undergrad at the time. And so that job is why I landed here.
Gotcha.
So I was in Tennessee as a little girl. Such a fondness for Nashville. I spent a lot of my young years in Brentwood, which was great. And I've gone back there many times. So at some point after that, I followed what I now understand was a call into ministry. I don't think that I understood it like that at the time. But I left my corporate career and I took my first ministry job and essentially began a long process of like truly receiving who the Lord made me to be. And that ended up with going back to seminary and just discovering a true deep love of the Word of God. And now I spend most of my time teaching and communicating the Bible. And that takes shape in, I'm a teaching pastor at Crossroads Church out of Cincinnati. And I teach maybe 10, 12 times a year on our weekend services. And then I also lead a pretty new part of our ministry that we just call Crossroads Women, just creating some things to address like deeper growth for women in our community. And one of those things is an exciting conference called Ignite. We're going to do for the second time this year. It's pretty new and I love it. And then I also write books and Bible studies. So this is my second book and I'm already in the middle of creating what will be my first published Bible study, but I've written so many studies over the years. It's like second nature. So I'm going to write some Bible studies after this for a while. So yeah, I love it. I've done podcasting, love to teach, love to speak, love to communicate really. I'm a words girl.
Awesome.
In any form or fashion.
Well, congrats on it all.
Yeah.
And I saw where you released a book maybe a couple of years ago, How to Stay Standing, 3 Essential Practices for Building a Faith That Lasts. That's pretty cool too. We have women pastors at our church too, and they teach sometimes on Sundays. I bet you never hear anybody push back and ask, "Are you sure you should be teaching?" You never hear those kind of questions.
Never.
Yeah, it's been so interesting. I did not grow up I wasn't like educated on the church world. Like that, that was not, I came into ministry because I love Jesus and he radically changed my life.
Yeah.
And so I did not know how many people have opinions about the call of God on my life and what that looks like. So that was like, and when you come into ministry in a setting like Crossroads, that's one of the biggest churches in the country, it's like a baptism by fire. I mean, they just throw you into the deep end because there's no other way to do it in a community that large. And so, yes, over many years now, I have heard it all. That's
so interesting how you put it, because I feel like, so you and I would be completely on the same page, I would imagine, with relatively how we see women leadership and women teaching and everything. But I came up in churches where all that stuff was like, you don't do that. You don't have, so it's like, I feel like I have a bit more understanding where people are coming from, where my wife, like, no patience. It's like, where are these people coming from? Just because of different upbringing and everything like that. Well, what I thought
it's funny.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I had to actually go back and learn the problem. Because that was a long time ago. I understand the spectrum that we're dealing with when it comes to women speaking in the church, and when it comes to women leading in the church, and how some people equate those two, and all of the opinions that surround all of that. Now I'm much more educated but I weirdly thought I was just following what Jesus wanted me to do with my life, and I ran into a brick wall of other people's thoughts and opinions about that. And one of the things that has honestly saved me over the years, because it wears on anyone who is regularly told that the way you're trying to honor Jesus is actually dishonoring him. That's a horrible thought. I think for anybody that genuinely loves Jesus, the thought and the repeated telling to somebody that the way they're loving and honoring Christ, they are so blind that they're actually doing the opposite. That is horrifying to me. And also I learned that we all have an enemy who knows our tendencies, and that might be the one thing that would shut me up. If I thought that I was dishonoring Jesus, I would do whatever I needed to do to fix that. So over time, I picked up on the pattern. So I have had people use exactly the same language to me. And it was like, oh, this is what he's doing to try to shut me up.
Yeah.
I need to be wise to this, and I need to get beyond this, even though it will never get beyond like hurting my heart. I need to understand this is an overt attack to close down my calling and to make me go away.
Yeah. And
so once I started to understand that and see it like that, I got a little bit better at dealing with it, but it will never stop hurting me. It's not good or fun to deal with that on a regular basis. And I still do all the time.
Yeah.
I think most women I've talked to that do anything like I do, have to weather the same.
Yeah.
At least in the United States of America.
Yeah. I like how you landed that, because it's a reminder for me that this ain't always funny.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Right.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'd love to do. I want to eventually have you go through the 5 relationships that you're, whet people's appetite a little bit, give them some information on what's to come if they read the book. But I thought that I came up with like 3 questions on communication in general, and I wanted to just have y'all's thoughts and opinions on these.
Great.
Yeah. First question, and I think some of these may be zingers, like, ooh, this is interesting. So pretend like you're super interested if they're boring questions.
Okay. Of course, we know now.
Yeah, you know now.
Yes.
So when do you two think, and Amy, I think you've been a part of a conversation along these lines before on here, but when do y'all think, how do you discern when a relationship that you do not have to be committed to, so it's you can walk away if you need to, how do you discern when a relationship needs to be walked away from because it's unhealthy versus relationships are hard? We need to work through this. This person is worth it. Because I've been in a situation where I had to cross that line of, I don't think this relationship or relationships are good for me anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know if fighting for them is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And as a Christian, I always thought, no, everything is reconcilable. If I'm a Christian, I've got to make wrong things right. And I got to figure it out. And until you've walked through a path of realizing, oh, wow, that's not the right thing, I don't know if you truly understand it. But y'all's opinion on how do you discern the difference between relationships are hard, you got to work through them, versus I think I need to walk away.
Well, I'll say I'm still learning all this because I feel like in my past, I didn't learn it until after it was over. That I was like, oh, that was why, like, I feel like it was God protecting me from something and from a relationship that wasn't going to be good for me, but I didn't know the time when I was going through it. Lee, I told you, he's been one very good discernment where he'll be like, nope. And I'm like, no, let's try to be friends. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's go. And then I end up getting hurt. And then he's like, not I told you so, but he's like, yeah, that's what I was talking about, and didn't see it till later. So I'm learning to trust his discernment because I don't think I have it all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So I'm still learning on all that of which ones that, because I don't know, you don't want to cut something off that could be good, but then you don't want to try to keep fighting for something if it's not meant from God. Yeah. So I'm still learning.
So have you been in a situation where you decided I've got to walk away from this relationship? Like, have you?
Yes. Like where I've had to be like, if I was always the one like reaching out and trying to do it, and I finally was like, I'm just tired, I'm just going to stop, and then had to let it fade away, unfortunately. And it hurt because it was like, I love this person, but you know.
Yeah. All right, Pastor Alli, curious what you think.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we have to recognize our own tendencies so we know, like, where am I going to lean on this? I will lean toward, I don't love messes. I'm probably going to lean toward, if it's messy, I'm going to want out. Like, that's just my natural personal leaning. I'm not one to, like, beat down your door to stay in a mess. And so it's really been important for me to recognize I'm going to probably be on the short side of that. And so if I find I'm having that instinct, I immediately start asking God some questions, because I think we just have to have an understanding of our own. We all have leanings that are like informed by sin and by our own, bad pasts and patterns. And so one of mine is going like, you know what? You're a mess. I don't really want it. You're done.
Get out.
And so I know that's kind of, that's the first thing is I just try to be really radically honest about who I actually am and what my maybe sometimes sinful tendencies are in relationships. And for me personally, I'm just saying one of mine is to like cut it off if it gets too messy. Right. That's just one of my personal ones that is not always correct. And so that's the first thing. And the other thing I would say is it was so freeing for me to read and understand through scripture that there were people Jesus walked away from, and there were boundaries that he seemed to set with people. And there are also instructions that are written in some of the personal greeting parts of New Testament letters that specifically tell believers to stay away from certain kinds of people and relationships. Yeah. And I would roll that all up into like it's really helpful for me if I watch the fruit of a relationship. And if the fruit is constantly division strife. There's no attempt at reconciliation on the part of the other person. If it's continuing to seek something from me, but not to offer anything, mutual. Yeah. These are all indicators that it's really a false version of a real relationship. I actually talk about that in the book a little bit in a chapter about what I called counterfeits. How sometimes we get kind of pulled into these relationships because they look like they're real.
Yep.
And then as you watch the fruit over time, you get, actually, I thought this was something, because we're not fools. We go into relationships for reasons. But if you watch the fruit over a long period of time, I think there are usually signs that the fruit is bad.
Right.
And that's the thing is, are you watching the outcome, or are you just mad about the messy middle part?
Yeah.
Is the outcome, are there actual growth and goodness and ripening taking place? Or is the strife leading to division and frustration and manipulation? There's all kinds of places that could go.
Yeah.
So,
that's good.
Anyway, I just try to be honest about myself and watch the fruit over time.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, because I think sometimes a light bulb can go off and you're like, how did I not see that?
Yes.
Like I should have seen that right. And there's certain relationships that I'm on the other side of walking away from where I realized in that season, how did I not see it? How did I not see what you're saying? Right. Like what the gross sum of the relationship was when you look at, good and bad and all that. All right. Yep. One more question. I'm going to skip one because I want to get into the book. But when it comes to technology and how people communicate, text, email, and that sort of thing, do you guys have a hard time in conforming to people's expectations of you? So I'll give you an example. There are certain people, my kids, my wife, and a handful of folks that we have a text back and forth relationship. So if they text me, it's like, that's so-and-so. I'll text them right back. We're going to go back and forth. But there's most people, I think, or a lot of people, they have expectations that that's just how you text. If like I've had someone text before and like within an hour, they're like, hello. And I think for my own, because I'm a people pleaser, I'm an Enneagram 9, so it's like I have to give myself certain rules to abide by. And one of them is I just don't text back and forth with any and everybody who would think that we should. And I don't really have any problem with that. Have y'all had to give yourself any rules when it comes to technology we have a pastor here who is a mentor of mine, and he actually used the words, sometimes you have to teach people how you want to be treated with communication. So if someone texts you out of the blue, with a random question, you're like, I don't really know if I want to have that kind of relationship, then you wait a couple days.
Yep. Absolutely. Like I've had to do it like where I try to respond as quickly as I can. One, just because I'll forget as a mom and working and all this. If I don't, then it could be days later that I remember and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like that's so rude. But then when other people don't respond right away, I'm like, how did they not answer me? So I'm trying to get better. But then my husband has had to be like, when I go to him, like, hey, I need to answer on this. He's like, we don't have a contract that we have to respond within a certain amount of time. Right. So take your time and think about it, or I can't answer that right now. Like if it's a schedule, like, hey, what are you doing on this date or something? Sometimes we want our yes to be yes. So we need to make sure we look at it really good. So yes, I feel like I don't know. I try to respond, but then I'll get mad when people don't with me. And then I realize I'm doing the same thing what other people are doing. And it's just like, so giving that grace, but.
Right. Right.
Yeah. For me, I try to be, I think I've been more gracious over time with this. I think I have become more gracious over time, but I have no problem saying, if somebody were to text me, let's say, and expect me to respond to something, I'll say like, hey, that's really an email request. Can you please shoot me an email? And just make it like really clear that my personal texting is not for all kinds of communication. Like, if my best friend says, hey, can you grab a coffee? Great. But if somebody at work texts me just because they want a response, I will push back and say, hey, can you email me that? And, I will deal with it, but
hours?
Not right this moment. So, I totally agree with your mentor that said you have to teach people how to treat you. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe I don't struggle with a ton of interpersonal boundaries because I don't keep a lot of people super close. I'm not saying that's always a good thing. I'm just saying, like, by the time you're texting me, we really know each other.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm totally okay with that. Yeah. And maybe it's because we also have a policy in our workplace that people don't just give out. Maybe it's an unspoken policy. Now I'm questioning it. People don't just freely hand out people's cell phone numbers because ministry is such a people intensive profession. There's not very many people I know that want everybody and anybody to have their cell phone number. And I think that's pretty well respected.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be pretty annoyed if somebody gave just anybody, like, oh, hey, text Alli about that. That would really annoy me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right, so, for sure.
Yeah, because when you think about it, just 30 years ago, this did not exist in everybody's hands. And it's like, all of a sudden, we have this, and I don't want to follow any sort of rules now that this has in my life. I mean, because they're all made up. They're just expectations that we just decided is culturally normal.
Right,
you know? All right, so what I love about the book that I haven't read yet, we were just talking about how yet another book to add to our to-read list.
For sure.
But I really do think relationships, as I get older, I realize that's all that life is about.
Yeah.
Like, when it comes to the important things, our relationship with God, our relationship with the ones that we love, and I would even include a caring relationship for ourselves. Like, and that would be a relationship, in my opinion. But I did a little bit of research just to find one stat for our listeners to be thinking about this. But in January 2024, 30% of U.S. adults reported feeling lonely at least once a week, and 10% reported feeling lonely every day. 10%.
Whoa.
That is crazy. That is crazy. So I want to get into, you look like you're already wanting to say something, Alli.
I do, because that doesn't surprise me at all. And I think that the whole reason for the book's existence is, as I discovered, I just like to look at Jesus in scripture, but turns out, like, everybody else seems to need a reason to care. And the reason that you would care about how he organized his relationships is because of loneliness, because of that stat, because we are drowning in it. And when we say that word, we recognize there's this internal experience I'm having that's not how it's supposed to be. And it's somehow connected to my relationships. And so for me, this is like a design that we've lost sight of. And it has everything to do with loneliness. But when you and I use that word, we mean different things by it. And that's why it's so helpful to look at the blueprint. And I use that in quotes. That's my word for it. The design of how Jesus did relationship, because we mean slightly different things. Your experience of loneliness and mine are very different based on what kinds of relationships we're missing. And so we use that word as a catch-all, but when we understand it a little bit better, we can see the holes and we know where to go. It's like you don't know what steps to take unless you're seeing a design. And I think we've totally lost sight of the fact that God designed us for a variety of relationships. And when any of those or any combo of those is missing, we experience what we call loneliness, but it can be very different by person.
And I know part of the foundation of your book is quality over quantity. And I'm curious, before we get into these relationships, do y'all think that is a little more difficult for extroverts to get that part right? Do y'all think that that's something that's a little more normal for extroverts to struggle with? Or you would be extroverted, right?
I think so, yeah.
And you would be introverted, right? I would guess. That's just my guess.
I am introverted, yes.
Me too,
but not extremely so. I kind of ride the middle and lean that direction.
Yeah.
I grew, who knows, but I grew up with an extremely extroverted mom. So bless her, she forced me into lots of good social skills that I may not have totally developed on my own. But I think what being an extrovert does is make certain parts of the blueprint really easy. And it might make other ones a little bit more difficult.
And would you say vice versa?
Introverts,
yeah.
Yeah. For introverts, you're going to lean toward development of a certain kind of relationship in either case. Mm-hmm. So I think it just makes certain types really fun or really easy, and other types, maybe you even overlook your need for in either case, but we have the need for all of them, and we're just better at developing some of them over the others.
Awesome. Well, what I would love to do is go through these 5 different relationships, and then Amy and I are going to kind of evaluate ourselves in real time as far as how we're doing in these different layers. Where do we want to start? The crowd or the core? Which way we want to go?
Let's go small first, especially because we were just talking about introverts and extroverts. But let's go small first. We'll go to the core. These are like your 1 to 3. If you're married, your spouse is definitely in this space, and it's really the people who are meant to represent the unconditional love of God to you. Mm-hmm. They see you, they know you, and you give them access that no one else has. Mm-hmm. And so you see this in the life of Jesus with Peter, James, and John. He's constantly pulling them out. They're the 3 that actually get to witness his transfiguration, where his divinity is seen in a unique way, and the 3 of them get to witness that. These are very indicative of like your core literally has access and sees you in ways that other people don't, and they don't change a lot. Not never. Of course, we go through shifts in our life, but a change in your core would likely be very painful. Mm-hmm. So, what do you guys think? How are you doing with your core?
I see people in my core as folks who are in it with me only because they deeply love me. Mm-hmm. And so that's just, obviously deep love is probably not going to change. Like you said, it rarely changes. Obviously you can have fallout, but the people that I think of, and sometimes I think maybe my critique to myself is maybe my list, I would see it as a little too wide. So maybe I give access to more people than I should, which we can get into a little bit. But the people I think of, I know they're in a relationship with me only because they love me. So I can tell them the ugliest stuff, and the only negative reaction they would have is, oh, shoot, that's hurting you. I love you. Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What about your core?
Exactly how I would describe the core.
Yeah. I did a good job?
You did great. You're doing great.
Yeah. 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
Same thing. We definitely have like our core that like our go-to that know like everything. We know everything. We have the hard conversations when we need to hold each other accountable. That we know things about each other that not everybody else knows. And we keep it that way and just love each other.
Yeah. You know what I always tell people is, when someone is truly in your core relationships like that, your closest couple, God gifts them the grace that you need.
Oh, yeah.
We're all sense. A handful.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Especially me.
We are all such a handful. And the truth is most people do not have the grace to hang in with us over a lifetime or over decades, because we are a pain in the rear end.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, your core has this beautiful combo of grace and truth where they see you, they know you, they love you, and they love you too much to not tell you the truth and not walk through stuff. It's that very Christ-like picture. But I always think, gosh, to hang in there with me, you need some grace, especially if it's been decades.
That's true.
Yeah, I think a tough lesson, Priscilla. So Priscilla's my wife, and when she mentions Lee, obviously she's talking about her husband. But early early years of ministry for Priscilla and I, we confused transparency, which is something that we see as generally a good thing to always have, like having an air of transparency. I don't know if air is the right word, but we confused transparency with vulnerability. And so we just were vulnerable with anybody, you know, just new people over for dinner. We're transparent.
All your problems.
Right. We're transparent people, but what we were doing is we were being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we learned the hard way that you can't do that with everybody. And there's a difference.
Oh my gosh, it's one of the most enlightening things about watching how Jesus does relationships is the types of interactions that he will have in each of these spaces. He does not love everyone the same way. And that, you know, toward the end of the book, I hit this nail on the head. But the truth is, Jesus loves everybody, but he behaves differently depending on what realm of relationship he's dealing with someone in. And I think social media like really tricks us into thinking that we should be behaving with the crowds like really what we should be reserving for the closest people in our life. Because that's often what gets clicks. It's often what people are intrigued by. It's often very polarizing because, again, we're all a little polarizing. So when we expose those parts to the wrong people, they shockingly do the wrong thing with them. Right. And so part of it is on us to recognize what kinds of interactions are really healthy in these different spaces. And you see that all over the life of Jesus, all over it, but not unless you're looking. You know, we can't look at our modern way of doing relationships for wisdom here. It's clearly not working. You gave us a couple stats already. And so that's what sent me back to Jesus going, okay, hang on. How did he do this? And so with Peter, James, and John, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, just like it is with your core when you have a genuine connection there.
I can talk about this for hours. We got to move on to community. So was Jesus's community the 12? Or was it the 70?
So you want me to just keep going out the
I'm sorry. I mixed up the order. The circle. Yeah.
Yeah, the circle is next. And yes, that's his 12.
Okay.
And, you know, of course, we know that he knew some of those guys prior to his public ministry. You can tell that when he calls them and how he interacts with them. But what we see is like, these were his shoulder to shoulder. They're his friends. They're his circle. This is the most obvious realm to me. It's the thing that really defines this, I think, in our lives very helpfully is who are you with weekly? And geography is more important here, even more important than it is in the core, because you need regular access and regular rhythms to have a strong circle.
Yeah.
So these are, I don't think they're usually hard to see in our life because they're our friends, they're our people, they're the people we're doing stuff with. But we do, like, I like people way more than I can put in my circle. Like, you know, I have enough affinity.
I relate to that.
Yeah.
I have enough affinity for lots of people to be in my circle, but not enough access.
Right.
And that's where it gets painful. Like, there's a woman that lives about 50 minutes from me, and we love each other. We have kids the same age. We have the same passions. We do some of the same activities. We love Jesus in similar ways. And I don't have enough access to her to legitimately call her a part of my circle.
Yeah.
Because I can't see her. Our lives don't overlap.
Right.
So this is super important for your circle.
Yeah.
So it seems like the circle and core, so this is how I would look at these. It's not a matter of trust that the circle people aren't in your core. It's a matter of practicality of time. I can't tell 12 people the innermost thoughts, but I'm thinking of who my circle would be. I could trust them. I just don't have the time to be that open to 12. Would you say that's fair, that you can trust your circle? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's totally fair.
Do you see a distinction between who you're thinking your core is and your circle?
And same thing. Like, yes, I trust them, love them, but I don't have access to them like the core. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, comrades.
Comrades is my favorite to talk to believers about because these are folks that, like, like the mom I just described, the other woman that I just described, she's a comrade. We are on the same mission with our life. Mm-hmm. And the more clearly you know your mission, the more powerful this realm is. So maybe for a while, like your mission is, I'm going to graduate from college. Helpful. You certainly don't want comrades that are going to get in your way of that, but that's not a super specific mission. Whereas if I say my calling is to teach the word of God, now I can identify extremely powerful comrades in that space. The best way to find comrades is to know what you're trying to do and just do it. And you start to see who's around you. And in Jesus's life, he had a variety. These go from like very close, like maybe people you wish could be in your circle, but it's just misaligned enough that they're not, maybe in circumstances, but in love, they particularly could be, and goes all the way up to this unnamed group of 72, other disciples that Jesus trained for mission in the kingdom and sent out. He clearly knew them. He knew enough to know we're on mission, but we never even get their names. Yeah. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, who clearly dear friends, regular visitation, deep commitment to one another, but not quite in his circle, not called to the same extent to travel and be with him in quite the same way, but on the same mission. They have the same heart. They're pointed the same direction.
So our comrades...
I think comrades is an exciting and powerful realm of relationship, especially in the kingdom of God.
So is it purpose driven? Like these relationships are...
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would say it's normal to have people that you have extremely high affinity and love for as well. We're just confronting our limitations as a person. Right. To hold that many people in a circle. So you're going to have some, I call there's a blueprint in the book. There's a literal blueprint that I encourage people to fill out as they read. And there are doorways. And so some people, I literally write their name in the doorway. Like they're kind of standing 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We have all different kinds of relationships. And some of them are like maybe moving toward a closer realm, or they're drifting further away. So we're not static people. Our relationships change all the time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I before you explained, and now I get it. I was thinking there's a lot of people in my life that I'm not in day-to-day contact. I'm not even really in monthly contact with, but we both know we have each other's back.
Right.
We both know that we could call each other and say, hey, man, I have a favor.
Right.
And the person wouldn't even hesitate. They'd be like, whatever you need, I'll do.
Yeah.
If I can, sort of thing.
One of the most wonderful ways to find comrades is to invest in training and mentoring kinds of relationships. Like some of the women that have turned out to be just awesome comrades for me live 6 states away, but because I invested in showing up at something that was going to train me better to be a better teacher, a better communicator, a better writer, all of a sudden I'm sitting right next to someone who has the same passion and the same calling. So one of the best ways I think to find those people is to just invest in what God is calling you to do. And suddenly you go, I'm like, oh, I'm running my race and there's somebody next to me. That's a great way to find a comrade.
I think we're comrades.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're comrades.
Yeah, I got your back.
Yep. Vice versa. All right, community and then crowd. Let's knock these two out.
Community was interesting. Initially, I had community and comrades together as I took my first read, as I was really getting a hold of this idea, because they're both sort of bigger, mixed realms with lots of different kinds of people. But Jesus clearly made a separation between people that were on mission with him in the kingdom of God with the message that he brought, his unique calling, versus people that were in his life because he was living a life. His Jewish cultural community is a great example of that. The town you grow up in, the family you grow up in. For a lot of us, our extended families are part of our community. we love them, but we're not on mission together, that we don't run in the same circle. So I think community is this mixed network of people that, I think it's like all the doors you could knock on in the world, where somebody's going to open the door and welcome you, or you them, but it's ill-defined. Maybe you've touched on their life as you've been living yours. And so you see this community realm in Jesus's life, and he does not, it's a little bit rough. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit rough when you watch him sometimes, because he will sharply separate, especially family from family in the kingdom of God. Most of his familial, his kin, the people that he would have grown up around, they are community relationships, and he prioritizes his kingdom relationships over them. But he doesn't not love them.
Right.
And he always invites them. You want to come in? You can come in.
Yeah.
Like, there's no wall there. It's just, if we're not on the same mission, it's a less defined type of relationship. So would you
community? Yeah. Would you guys think, so I'm thinking in my head, I have a lot of communities that would fit into my greater community. One would be parents of my kids' teammates on the soccer field.
Totally.
We don't hang out, but we all are invested in our kids, and we enjoy each other's company on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
100%. Yeah. Perfect example.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good
and
at this.
Also,
you're so good at this.
The way community shows up for each other is resources. Like, community is very good at resourcing. Like, this is not a bad kind of relationship. This is a blessing. It's a net. It's a support system. The longer you live in a geographic community or a family community, the more I think you experience the power of community, because community is so awesome at resourcing because you care, right? Like, if one of those parents needed something, you're probably going to put your hand up and go, yeah, I'd be a part of helping with resources there.
Sure.
So this is a good thing. This is not a bad thing. I think it's one of the bigger changes in my personal life was realizing how valuable this is, because again, I like the fewer closer. And so over time I had to realize, like, wow, this is actually super important. And I have a tendency to cold shoulder it a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. What's neat is, I would say, and I bet you could relate to this church feels like a community. And then we have comrades, circle, and core within that community.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And with this church specifically, I know there's some churches that are small enough to where the whole thing is your community, but we're about to move into the crowd, and here there's a lot of people we don't know.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
I wonder if that would be
every day I meet someone I don't know.
Right. All right. So how does your book tackle crowd?
Yeah, crowd is really exactly what it sounds like. Truly people that you cross paths with, that you have no previous knowledge of, no previous relationship with. But this might be my favorite chapter in the book. If you only read one chapter, read this one, because I go through the parable of the Good Samaritan, because here you have the classic case of crossing paths with someone in the crowd. No previous relationship, circumstances cross your paths, and God had some really interesting things to say about what happens when we intersect someone in the crowd. And so if we really want to participate in the fullness of the love of God, giving it and receiving it, we need the crowd, because God's love was for us when we were a stranger, when we were an enemy, when we were alienated and totally unknown. We did not know him. And his love crosses those boundaries. And so I think the mistake, quote unquote mistake, that a lot of us make is thinking that the love of God stops in the bounds of our community, like people that we have some kind of networked connection to. But this is the mistake that he came against in the parable of the Good Samaritan. And so the love of God is on the line here, because the uniqueness of the love of God is that it seeks you out when you are a stranger and, frankly, a cost to him. And so when we value, like, really what the love of God looks like in the crowd, it is the ultimate expression of loving another like he does.
Yeah.
When there's no benefit to you, no connection to you, and frankly, a pretty high cost. Those are the moments where we kind of learn. It's like a training ground for the love of God.
Yeah.
So we need it in our life. And we just walk through crowds, both literal and, literal physical crowds, and just the crowds of living in the world, with our head in our phone, more and more focused on our own echo chambers of people who look like us and think like us and all that kind of stuff. And we're costing ourselves something in terms of really learning how to love with the love of Christ. So it might be my favorite chapter, and it's a huge challenge, I think, to me and to anyone else who really wants to love more like Jesus. And we're pushing crowds out of our life because we've been taught now to be afraid of them and to just want community that looks and sounds like us. And we really don't have a lot of authentic crowd interaction going on right now. And it is going to cost us something.
Yeah. You seem like you would be pretty natural at showing love to a crowd. Like when you walk through a grocery store line, you're probably really nice and sweet.
I try to be.
Yeah. Yes. like, have you ever lost your cool with like a server? Like, with
a waiter?
Yeah.
No, because I was a waitress, so I give grace.
Me too.
Yes. Yeah. Especially if I've been in that position, I know, which I think that helps us to give grace for people when we've been that way.
All right, so I hesitate.
Oh my gosh, have you guys ever done the thing where you leave a gigantic tip? It's like one of my favorite things
Yes, my husband and I have done that.
Do you ever do that?
Yes. We haven't done it recently.
I
Thank you for the reminder.
Love that.
It's a Christmas tradition for our family. We every December we go out to a nicer restaurant than what we typically go to, or just, we don't really try to pick pennies. So it's like, hey, let's go all out. And part of it is the big tip, and the kids just absolutely love it. So this is just I hesitate to share this because it seems so braggy, but I think it's because I'm so hard-headed. If I don't have this kind of structure, then I wouldn't think this way. But now it's become more of a habit that, unless it's something like we're downtown and I got to get a kid to an appointment, or it's really a special night with Priscilla and I, and maybe, there's exceptions, but if I see someone who is homeless, I always try and give them some attention and just ask them, is there anything I can do? Like, are you hungry or something like that? Because for me, it's just like it's just a personal habit and conviction that I have. It's not something that I think everybody should do. But for me, it's like, this is the most low-hanging fruit of opportunities of the crowd, because I'm a busy person, just like most of us. And those opportunities, they don't grow on trees,
Yes.
So it's just kind of a practical way.
You're reminding me of a thing we used to do when my kids were younger, but it's not really a little kid thing. It's an anybody thing. I don't know why we stopped doing it. Now I'm going to resurrect it. We used to keep bags. We called them blessing bags in the back of our car. And just to try to acknowledge, even at a red light where you can't get out of the line of traffic and have a personal interaction, just to say, like, we expected to see you. We prepared for you. We love you. Just something. And anyway, I used to have my kids help me assemble them. And we would talk about why we were including certain things and what might be hard, what might be a blessing, what might be helpful, to somebody that we would give one of those bags to. But I don't know why we stopped doing that. See, it's easy to squeeze it out, right?
We're having small group right now. We're just all helping each other out.
I know we do it around Christmas.
Yeah.
We did actually have that, but why is it only around Christmas? That's true. Why not just all the time?
Right.
So that's good. We should all bring that back.
There you go.
Let's all do blessing bags.
All right, so we'll wrap it up here. And this was awesome and so much fun. And thank you for being here. But all of us are in similar-ish, actually pretty similar seasons of parenting, it sounds like. And I think that having the sort of relational structure, we would all understand how it could be more challenging when you're in the thick of parenting. My question for you, Alli, is how does the actual family fit into the equation of core, circle, comrades, community, and crowd? Like, my guess would be that you and your spouse are going to have a core-like relationship, and then maybe some with your kids with limitations, but then maybe your kids are going to see more as like a circle because you don't want to burden your kids with all your troubles.
Yes.
Would you agree with that assessment,
absolutely.
Maybe?
Yeah.
What's your take?
I talk about this in the book, how as you read the definition of a circle, the most similar kind of time and relationship in your life, that's the kind of space your kids take up. Mm-hmm. It's weekly, it's rhythmic, it's shoulder to shoulder, it's conversational, it's present together, it's all those things. And you're right. I think maybe as your kids become adults, you could have them in a healthy core, but not, I think that probably most psychologists would agree with us. It might be dysfunctional to have your have your children in your core until they're, fully functioning adults.
Here's what me and your dad are struggling with.
What are your suggestions?
So, as a mom of 4 kids, I have had to recognize, make space for, give grace to myself as I pursue the circle, which has always been kind of tough for me. I have to realize my circle is going to be smaller because I have 4 children that are taking up, and I don't mean this in a bad way, they're taking up, quote unquote, space that's like that kind of relationship in my life. And I think we just have to recognize that's true. And Jesus isn't living the same lifestyle that you and I are living. And so I think the best way to recognize actively parenting most ages of kids is like circle. It's space, less space to develop friendships in a circle.
Yeah.
Alli Patterson, we're talking Blueprint for Belonging, the 5 relationships Jesus needed and why you need them too. Is Amazon the best route, or going to your website? We'll have your information in the show notes, but
you can certainly find links at allipatterson.com, but Amazon's always great. It's there, or anywhere else you like to buy books. It's all over the place. So thank you.
Yeah,
so fun.
Can't wait to read it. It is on our list. We did add it.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
You've been watching Seacoast Church's Things You Won't Hear on Sunday podcast. You can now become a patron of this podcast and receive exclusive content. Your support goes towards Seacoast ministry efforts in local prisons. Also, be sure to leave us a review and subscribe to this podcast so that you get these episodes as soon as they're released. All of this information can be found in the show notes. Thanks for watching.